Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how much Sniper's doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one, the only legendary, you guessed it, Zebec network. Listen, last time we talked about where we should see basically Zebec network start to reverse. And guess what? We were literally crystal clear perfect, right? We talked about how literally in this specific zone, I expect Zebec to reverse, and that is how it happened. That is how it played out. Now, you might ask me, well, how did you know? Right? Was it a lucky guess? No. Guys, listen, Zebec is manipulated, and that is a good thing that it is manipulated. Okay, because when your crypto is manipulated, that means it trades a certain type of way. And without manipulation, there is no even room for success. And if you're surprised, crypto's manipulated, then where were you on October 10th when basically majority of the market died 85% in about 30 minutes, right? We can even see October 10th for Zebec network. If we go look at the very top where it started and where it ended, even at one point, right? Zebec went roughly down 50% in that day at one point. You understand that, right? Other cryptos were down like 80 to 90%. Like we saw the market in real time get super, super, super manipulated. So, yeah, if you're surprised that crypto's manipulated, then I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but this is the reality, right? Like, this is the reality. And again, if you're not manipulated, then you won't ever succeed when it comes to crypto. So, we looked at specific zones, right? We looked at specific zones. I knew basically this is a certain type of candle. And then within that candle, I knew there's going to be another specific type of candle, which you could go back where I said on the hourly, it shows that, hey, yeah, we're tapping into this specific type of candle and I expect reversals. And I said, hey, you can even take a trade if you want, right? If I were trading right now, this is exactly what I would do something like this. And I think we said something like up here, right? It was roughly like 3 to 3.5 times your money. And we can see this one, it goes upwards of 4 times your money within a span of a couple of hours. And this is why I am a trader, people, right? Within 24 hours, the potential to make 4 times your money is absolutely insane. Anyways, right? As we know, I did say it was most likely going to be short-lived, and we could see although we had a extremely powerful 4-hour candle, we had an engulfing 4-hour candle, which you can see did bring down the momentum. Now, although technically there's a support over here, the question is, well, how much value does it have? Now, in my opinion, it doesn't have too much value, but I would not be surprised if we do see a little bit of a pull up right before we do something like this again to potentially go lower, right? And if we don't do this, then it's just simple. We were just going to linger around and go lower. Do I think we're going to go up? I mean, there's a chance, right? We have to see how this daily candle closes. It is tapping into this institutional area right here, right? It is tapping into an institutional area right here, which is why we made this type of specific candle. And again, which is why I think we could definitely most bounce off of the 0.00626 or the 262, my apologies, right? But in terms of the daily, it's not that bad. And the reason why I say it's not that bad is because although we aren't seeing the bullish momentum we want to see, when we go and look at daily candle closes, if it does close like this, it does mean that we had a pretty decent sell candle, a much weaker sell candle, and a really, really weak sell candle, right? Which is good, which is good. However, though, we are slowly running out of time, right? We are slowly running out of time. It is already Thursday. And with it being Thursday, which means we have to basically reverse enough within the next few days. And usually Saturday and Sunday, you can't rely on the most to reverse because that's when momentum is usually much, much lower. If you guys are not familiar with why I'm looking for reversals, basically, right, we want to go above these highs of 0.002558. It is very, very simple, right? Why, you might be asking? Well, we have these lows, we have higher lows, and we want to have a higher low. We have highs, we have higher highs, right? And we took out this last swing high. There is a world where we could, to be honest, retrace a good amount and we are still technically bullish. Like we could really come back down to something like the 0.002 and then see a bounce up just because there is an institutional candle right over here. But, I would prefer if it was just stronger right away, right? If it was stronger right away. Look, we've seen it before where we kind of break out, right? Oops, what is happening? Jokes is a question mark. I know how to use the the brush, bro. Look, anyways, right? There's been times we're kind of in a zone, we try to break above a zone, we go below it, and then boom, the real move happens, right? The real move happens. I overall believe no matter what, right? Especially that we did break out of a very, very critical zone. If we go look at something like Zebec network, boom, like this, and then like this, right? We talked about how for many, many weeks back in January, March, and even like February, right? We're saying, hey, you know what? Late February, or sorry, late March, early April, somewhere there, it should be when the breakout happened. We see it happen in late March, and now we're kind of coming back down. The reality is even if we come back down, come over here, that's not the worst thing, because again, we kind of experienced the exact same thing here, where we did have a breakout. Eventually, we kind of went back, flatline, and then we actually had the real pumps come in. Overall, I am looking more at the bigger picture, right? I am looking more at the bigger picture. When it comes to something like the monthly, we have not taken any monthly high out, right? Which is something we did mention already back in April, which I wanted it to happen, but it didn't happen, right? So we can see in terms of monthly candle closes, we are consistently going lower and lower and lower. When we do hit that new monthly candle, when we do hit that nice bullish monthly candle, the day we overtake this April one is the day it's going to be super confirmed that we are bullish. But at that point, in terms of cheap prices, it's going to be a little bit too late, because the monthly confirmation, you have to wait the whole month for it to confirm, but a lot can happen within those weeks or even those days, right? And that's kind of just the reality. That is kind of just the reality. Again, right? Because we are in the last month for this quarter. That means this 3 month candle, right, is going to be shaped up a certain type of way. I would prefer it to be a low, high, and then eventually close up higher, right? So we can continue to go up. In the events where we don't close higher, then we would be a high, lower high, a low, and potentially some type of lower low here, meaning that quarter three could be slow. Quarter three could be slow, generally speaking. However, we did talk about, right, that looking in the price action on the weekly and the daily is super, super important, because sometimes you could be deceived. And this is when trading can get a little bit complicated, right? This is when trading could get a little bit complicated. It's because even though on the 3 month year wasn't that convincing, right, when you looked actually at the daily, right, and you knew exactly what happened, you can tell that, hey, we basically swept all of this liquidity over here, and then we started to reverse super, super heavily. And right, it's kind of when I started to invest in, right? I personally invested up here, right here, called it on the private community. We also called this sell-off somewhere here. It was roughly a 3.5x, if not more, right? Boom, 2.75, right? So which means 3.75 times your money. Actually, should have been a little bit higher. So it was a little bit higher. But yeah, it was something like that. It was basically something like that. And yeah, it is looking good. It is looking great. And yeah, man, overall, I'm not worried too much. I am not worried too much, just because, for me, I look at the bigger picture. That's something we talked about last video as well. For me, I even said, even if God forbid, I mean, it's not even not even God forbid, but even if we did have an underwhelming cycle or pumps or whatever, we hit something like 2 cents, which is a very, very high probability. At the end of the day, you're still making so much money, right? If you hit like 2.5, 3 cents, you are still making so much money. Money people can only dream of, right? Even if it is just a hypothetical like 10x, 1,000's 10,000, 10,000's 100,000, 100,000's $1 million, right? So 10x is still insane, right? And I think no one's complaining about that. I think no one is complaining about that. But that's ultimately going to be it. We will look at some of the basics. When we go look at something like the Zebec network, we see we are ranked 112 out of 8,207 active cryptos. When we go look at the monthly, we're down 30%. In the last week, we're down almost 10%. In the last day, we're kind of break even. When we look at something like the holders, we can see that we're almost at 107,800 holders. So very good. Very, very nice. That is it though, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.